There comes a moment in every leader's career when they encounter someone who tests their patience, someone who challenges the flow of the team, someone who turns simple work into complicated work. And sooner or later, every manager asks the same question: how do I deal with this person? But here is something experienced leaders eventually learn. Most difficult employees are not truly difficult people. They are people operating inside an environment where expectations are unclear, accountability is inconsistent, or leadership has allowed behaviors to drift. In other words, the employee is not always the problem. Sometimes the environment is. Now, that may not be comforting to hear, but it is incredibly useful to understand. Because if the environment allows difficult behavior to grow, then the leader has the power to correct it. The first thing a wise leader does is step back and diagnose the situation. Not emotionally, but carefully. Because difficult employees usually fall into a few recognizable categories. The first is the capable but resistant employee. This person knows how to do the job. They may even be very good at it, but they challenge direction. They question authority. They push boundaries whenever they can. The second type is the overwhelmed employee. This person is not resisting leadership. They are simply struggling. They may be behind on work, unclear about priorities, or lacking training they never received. From the outside, this can look like laziness, but often it is confusion. The third type is the disengaged employee. They show up, they do the minimum, but the spark is gone. Something in their experience has caused them to disconnect from the work. And finally, there is the employee who tests the system. This person is always watching to see how far the rules can bend. They miss deadlines. They find loopholes. They operate just inside the boundaries of what is allowed. Now, here is where inexperienced leaders make a mistake. They react emotionally. They get frustrated. They complain about the employee. They label the employee as a problem. But wise leaders do something different. They bring the conversation back to the standard. Because leadership is not about winning arguments with employees. Leadership is about reinforcing expectations. So the first step when dealing with difficult behavior is clarity. The employee must understand exactly what the expectation is. Not vaguely, not casually. Clearly, what the job requires, what success looks like, and what behavior is expected inside the team. Many difficult situations disappear the moment expectations become unmistakably clear. But if the behavior continues, the second step becomes necessary: accountability. This is where many leaders hesitate. They worry about being liked. They worry about confrontation. But accountability does not require aggression. It requires calm consistency. A simple conversation is often enough. This is the expectation. This is what I'm seeing instead. Help me understand what's happening. That question is important, because sometimes the answer reveals something you didn't know. A process problem, a workload issue, a misunderstanding. But sometimes the answer reveals something else: resistance. And when resistance is the issue, the leader must reinforce the boundary. Not emotionally, but firmly. Standards are not suggestions. Standards are the operating agreement of the team. Now, there is a third step that strong leaders use: visibility. When work becomes visible, accountability becomes easier. Shared progress, clear reporting, open updates on assignments. These systems remove confusion and reduce opportunities for difficult behavior to hide. Because difficult behavior often thrives in the shadows. The fourth step is consistency. One employee cannot be allowed to operate under a different set of rules. The moment exceptions appear, the team begins to notice. And when the team notices inconsistency, respect begins to erode. But when standards apply evenly to everyone, the environment becomes stable. Now, here is something many leaders discover over time. Some employees will adjust quickly when the standard becomes clear. Some will need coaching. And some will eventually decide that the environment is no longer comfortable for them. And that is okay. Because leadership is not about keeping everyone happy. Leadership is about building a team that can function with trust and clarity. The goal is not to remove every difficult person. The goal is to create an environment where difficult behavior cannot survive for long. And when that environment exists, something interesting happens. Most employees rise to meet the standard because people naturally adapt to the expectations around them. That is the quiet power of leadership. Not control, not force, but clarity. Clear expectations, visible work, consistent accountability. When those elements are present, difficult situations rarely stay difficult for long, and the leader no longer feels like they are constantly putting out fires. Instead, the team begins to operate the way strong teams always do, with responsibility, with communication, and with a shared understanding of what the work requires. Because when the standard is clear, the team begins to carry it together.